Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Midday Market Update on this stormy spring afternoon. It is, what is it, March 25th,
Stormy
2021.
Thursday afternoon, rainy here in the heart of Freight Alley, as you typically say, Michael Vincent. But overall, pretty good day. Pretty good day so far. Keeping an eye out on that weather, which Nick Austin's going to tell us about here in just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, you had a little bit of power flickerage going on, but now we're in between lines of thunderstorms, which
Hmm.
you're telling me is not such a great thing. But we'll hear from, like you said, we'll hear from Nick a little bit later. But we should be
Hmm.
able to get through the show without losing power, I would hope. And it's good because we got three guests today, Kaylee.
Um, do
We
what?
got Math we got Mathew we got Mathew Elenjickal, founder and CEO at FourKites. We got Jason Roberts, who check this out, Senior Vice President and Business Unit President at Avenger Logistics and Mode Enterprise Operations. Huge business card for Jason Roberts. I knew him when his business card was only this big. Right? And then we got Eric Kulisch, air cargo editor,
Hmm.
talking about what's going on in air cargo. Lots of crazy things going on. Like you said, Nick Austin. And then we have Zach Strickland on the freight markets and also Anthony Smith today. So,
It,
yeah, we got
it
a full agenda.
almost sounds like we should change the title of the show to Intermodal Market Update, right? Because we're talking maritime, we're talking rail, we're talking air, we're talking everything today. So it
That's
should be
right.
a good show slated for you guys. And you're right, I was definitely watching those power flickers earlier, and we're just praying that I stay online for the entirety of the show. If not, it might just have to be the Michael Vincent show instead.
Yeah, well, I
But
think no one's staying in for that. No one's.
we're watching your guys'
Yeah.
comments on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Of course, y'all know it's an interactive show. Drop us some questions and some comments. We would love to hear from you guys. Let us know you're listening. And Michael Vincent, what have we got first up in news today? Everybody's talking about this headline, and we've got some good insight about what's going on in the Suez Canal.
Yeah, so from the perspective of oil, we saw oil jumped like what 4% or something like that the day that this occurred, and so
Mhm.
Greg Miller writes in headline on FreightWaves.com is what the Suez Canal accident means to the tanker business. It might not be what you immediately might think, but check that thing out, man. That thing is immense, my friend.
That's
Very
a,
big.
it's a very
Yeah,
large
so
container ship.
it is the Ever Given. So Greg Miller writes, when the ultra large box ship Ever Given lodged itself sideways in the Suez Canal, blocking all traffic, containerized cargo shippers may have thought to themselves, what else can go wrong, right? I know
Hmm.
I did. Let's hope this ends quickly. Tanker owners and investors probably thought something different. Finally, something positive. Let's let this thing be stuck for weeks. Right? So, getting into this, energy intelligence firm Vortex identified 10 tankers carrying 13 million barrels of Middle Eastern crude that face northbound delays due to the accident. Argus Media reported that there are five Suez Maxes tankers with 1 million barrel capacity loaded and crude and two high sulfur fuel oil waiting southbound transits. Also in the queue, two product tankers carrying naphtha and one Aframax 750,000 barrel capacity loaded with fuel oil. The best case scenario for tanker rates is for ship to divert away from the canal and travel around the Cape of Good Hope instead. That would add about 15 days to the voyage length for the Middle East to Europe and par ships available to bid on cargoes. A positive for spot rates. The longer the Evergreen is stuck, the more likely tankers will reroute and help with their spot rates. Argus noted that the canal blockage could delay tankers returning empty southbound from Europe to the Middle East, and that had been scheduled for fresh cargo loadings. This could force charters to pay premiums to secure prompt replacements. It would take a long thing, is what he's getting up here.
Hmm.
Rapid upside rate upside would require an extended closure to tighten vessel simply more significantly than our supply more significantly, said Argus. If you dig into that article, which is really interesting, Kaylee, is when you read through there, you start to understand why this doesn't have that big of an effect. And there's 9% of the oil moves through there, but it actually goes into what is it, the Red Sea, and then it is offloaded on the Red Sea, piped up to the Mediterranean, and then loaded again and moved into Europe. Is majority of the oil that is moving through there, so it would take quite a delay.
So you've got people who are thinking, oh, not only where's my freight on these container ships that are backed up, but also where's my oil? And you talked about that addition of an additional 2 weeks of a journey to take that journey around the southern tip of Africa instead of moving that through that canal. And that's just ridiculous if you're talking about delays.
It is, but when you get into the super maxes and those type of things, the water there is too shallow. So they either offload and pump the oil around the canal and then reload again ships and disperse on the other side in the Mediterranean, or they're going around the Southern Cape anyways,
Mhm.
because they can't go through that Suez like this ship did. I mean, those super or ultra large or whatever they're called, the super large, the very large crude carriers,
Mhm.
Suez Maxes, they and bigger, they can't get through it. So
Just that's a wild story, and we're going to be watching it as it slowly gets unstuck, right?
yeah, there were reports that it was unstuck. That's not the case. Days, weeks, maybe, and that's unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. What else does Maritime need? What else do they
Exactly.
need?
So
Absolutely.
up next in our headlines, we've got a pretty interesting article from Clarissa Hawes, and she's one of our investigative reporters, and she digs into a lot of the crime side. She's on that podcast, Long Haul Crime Log, right? And this article, she's talking about foreign truckers allege U.S. job offers turned into a human trafficking scheme, and this story is there's a lot to it, and it gets really interesting once you dive down deep into it. So, lured by the promise of better pay and the American dream, some truck drivers from Eastern European countries claim that they were sold a bill of goods after arriving in the US. Drivers told FreightWaves that recruiters said they could earn more money in a month hauling cars in America than they could make in an entire year in their home countries. So, this promise of way more money for less work than you could do in your home country, right? Yearly average pay for a truck driver in Russia is equivalent to about $4,700, according to Salary Explorer, and truck drivers earn even less in Ukraine, about $3,100. So of course, when you see those ads, it's not easy to pass up a $3,000 per week stipend to move cars in the US, right? You're
Yeah.
told, hey, I'm going to earn this monthly salary in a week. Why would you not take it? But once in America, drivers told FreightWaves that they found themselves trapped in an alleged human trafficking scheme, forced to drive 7 days a week, up to 20 hours a day, getting paid a fraction of what they're promised. So, false promises for the American dream in this story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely crazy what's going on. And we started looking at this article before, and it gets even worse because when you hear about human trafficking, you think, well, maybe these trucks are moving humans back, north from
Hmm.
Mexico, whatever you happen to be. But it's not. These people are almost enslaved into the trucking business
Right.
and making these guys movies and this or making these guys money. And this guy Chris, not his real name, he describes a system to stay awake during these things because he's working like 50, 140 hours a week, 20
Hmm.
hours a day, stuff like that. And he says, he described it. He drinks tea and lemon juice because it is sour and kept him alert. Then he would switch to Red Bull, then coffee, and then the soda. And then he just start mixing them all together. And he says the first 20 hours were all right because I was used to it, Chris said. But the remaining 30 hours, a 50-hour straight stint, were tough. And Chris said he started seeing things on the road that weren't there. At one point, he fell asleep behind the wheel because the warm sun was beaming through his windshield. He said, I woke up to sounds of horns beeping. He told FreightWaves, I started in the right lane and drifted into the left lane.
Mm.
It was dangerous. I shouldn't have been driving. Just incredible stuff. Chris said he felt trapped and feared for reprisal from the owners if he quit.
Mm.
You got to check this out. Clarissa, I mean, Clarissa Hawes, like Dooner says, if you see her walking up to the front door, there's something going down. It's probably not going to be a good news day for whomever she's seeking. But
Nope.
this is full of international intrigue and mystery, and it's a really good article. You got to read into it. So
It almost
or read it.
kind of
It's really good.
it kind of reads like a novel almost. Like you're like, I can't
Yeah.
believe that this is actually happening. And the storytelling that she does in it is fantastic work, investigative piece.
Yeah, no, she's awesome. Check it out on freightwaves.com. It's really good. Another one we have there on freightwaves.com is by Joanna Marsh, and she's talking
Hmm.
about Wall Street and their reaction to the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Southern merger, right? That it
Right.
was announced Canadian Pacific taking those guys over, and a $29 billion was takeover was reported on Sunday, and their reaction is fairly positive, but still, they want to wait and see where the Surface Transportation Board goes with their investigations, right?
Mhm. So Andrew Cox mentioned that the hearing for this could take a while to happen, right? He said that it could take upwards of a year for this merger to be approved. So my question is, in the meantime, anything that changes on Wall Street is just kind of speculative, right? They're just making an assumption that this merger would be approved and then kind of hedging their bets on that approval, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's what I take from it too. And Bascom Majors from Sequoia says, that to be clear, we wouldn't expect that other Class One deals would be announced near term. The executives, boards, and advisors of other rails closely watching the CP Kansas City Southern litmus test for this Surface Transportation Board currently merger appetite for dive before they dive in, right? So
Mhm.
even so, other mergers that are possible to have happened, they're watching what's going on here, and like you said, to be clear, we do believe that the Surface Transportation Board will ultimately approve the merger, but we're also prepared for the process to drag on beyond mid 2022 approval
Mhm.
timeline. So they'll be watching to see if there's any what type of tea leaves are dropped out of this process to see where the sentiment is. Although it's different than mergers that have gone on in the past because it's a much smaller.
Right.
These two are very small Class One railroads, and even together, they'd still be the smallest Class One railroad. And it does offer some decent competition in its T-like structure that would um, compete with others
Mm.
in a decent way, is what I'm gathering from this article. I would defer to Mike Bowden-Distel, our intermodal expert, who would probably slap me and say you're reading it completely wrong, but I don't think so. I think it's right. So, anyways, those are all articles. GetOutFreightWaves.com. They're great reads that are going on. They're excellent reporters, all three of them, and really interesting things that are going on right now in
Mhm.
the industry. Right?
For sure. So let's take a look in on LinkedIn right now. We've got a couple people hanging out with us. Eric Thornton checking in, saying, hoping everyone's having a great day. Nico Brown says, hello, all. I love Nico. He's always on our feed. We love to see that. And we've
Nico.
got Trailer Bridge in the house. Eric Mazzotti checking in from sunny Florida. Sunny Florida is the place that I wish I was right now, Eric, because, as we were talking about earlier, we've got the threat for severe storms in our area today. Already seen one round come through of Chattanooga. And we've got meteorologist Nick Austin here to tell us a little bit about that severe threat and what it means across the Southeast.
That's right. Drivers are going to hit a lot of rough weather across many parts of the South, especially this afternoon and this evening. That's when we'll see the most severe storms popping up and the threat for a lot of tornadoes, too. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about those risk areas on the critical events map. The general region we're talking about that could see severe storms stretches from the lower Mississippi Valley, parts of the Gulf Coast, all the way to the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. But really, the areas later today that'll be most prone to severe winds, large hail, and some strong tornadoes, and possibly long track tornadoes, those ones that stay on the ground for a long time. In this region here, which is under a high risk from the Storm Prediction Center, it's rare that they issue a high risk, as well as this red shaded region here. So this includes almost all of Mississippi and Alabama, particularly from the I-20 corridor northward. It also includes Middle and West Tennessee, also Chattanooga and East Tennessee, up to southern parts of Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, the Missouri Boot Heel, eastern Kentucky, all of those areas, not every location in those shaded regions, but a lot of locations will see severe weather widespread across those areas. All modes, as we mentioned, the wind, the large hail, golf ball size or bigger, winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour or stronger, and several tornadoes possible. Just outside of that region, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, as far north as parts of the Midwest, we could see severe storms too. There will also be a threat for flash flooding in a lot of areas, as well as a lot of lightning. So the best thing for drivers to do is to make sure that their weather apps on their mobile devices are all set to either GPS or location mode. That way, they'll get alerts no matter where they go. And again, this is not going to really have a large impact or major shifts in freight flows down the road or freight markets, but it's really just an issue of driver safety out there.
Yeah, not a good day across the South today
Mhm.
to be traveling in those corridors.
And honestly, that flash flooding risk, cannot be understated. Like that is one of the biggest problems that we see is you see someone, especially drivers who are in those big trucks thinking, oh yeah, I can take on this flooded roadway. Absolutely not. If you see any flooding, just do not even try and go through it. Likely that you're going to stall out, get stuck, and then create a problem where you have to be rescued. So that flooding, we've already seen some places in that middle to northwest Alabama receiving upwards of 1 to 2 inches of rain already just with these first 2 rounds this morning. Do not drive through any flooded roadways the rest of the day.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a really silly thing to do.
Don't do it.
I floated a truck down the Monongahela once in college. It wasn't a smart thing to do.
Don't do it. Just don't.
In Pennsylvania. Yeah, not a good thing to do. Let's check out the freight markets. Let's see what is going on in the freight markets with Zach Strickland.
Tender rejection rates continue to climb, kind of unexpectedly, if you will, without some sort of big catastrophic event like we had in the middle of February with a winter storm. We're up around 27.92% right now. So that's the percent of loads that are being rejected by carriers. As this rate goes higher, prices follow suit. And it's been kind of almost a vertical jump. Just a few days ago, we were kind of hovering around 26.5%. And then out of nowhere, to start the week, a big jump happens. And it appears to have occurred without a real big catalyst, like I said. It's real spread out across the country. There's no single market driving, all of this. Normally we see in Ontario or Los Angeles or somewhere like an Elizabeth, really driving this kind of jump. But this one's pretty spread out across the country. So we're nearing the all-time high once again. Now, the all-time high we just hit in November this past year around Thanksgiving of 28.46%. And the pace that we're on, it looks like we're at least going to get close to that without some sort of big change here later this week. But we'll see on that one. And it's also being driven mostly by van capacity. This is not a produce season event, as we've mentioned in the past. It's not, reefer rejection rates actually peaked the earlier part of the month, around just over 50%. They're back under that level right now, and they're kind of hovering around that 49%. Still a very tight market, nonetheless. Some of the big markets that are making the moves, however, are looking at Denver. Mike, you and I talked about Denver yesterday on the 3PL Summit. Denver really having a big push of increase in tender rejection rates, jumping from about 26% to 37% here in the last few days. That big snowstorm that hit out there a few weeks ago may have had something to do with it, where they had almost 2 feet of snow in the metro area, and snow continues to drop in that area. But that is probably one of the biggest markets to watch here over the next little bit, as they probably are recovering from some of that continued winter weather.
No doubt. And like I said earlier in the week, they're all taking off in Denver. They're getting ready for this weekend, man. There's going to be 2 feet of fresh powder. Of course, they're shipping everything they possibly can so they can get out into the mountains and enjoy that 2 feet of fresh powder, man. That is skiing.
I would take 2 feet of 2 feet of fresh powder over 2 feet of muddy southeastern rainwater any day. Any day.
Okay. All right then. Yeah, the clay is not so good, but the markets, the freight markets, it's interesting. They're on fire. It's the volumes are going up. The O-Tri is going up, and like we spoke with Lorianne LaRocca on our Tuesday show. Look, the surge is coming in back again in ocean as well, maritime. And we'll get with Eric Kulisch later in the show and find out what's going on in air cargo. I bet it's not a whole lot different. I
would assume not. But let's check out what's going on the macroeconomic scale. We've got Anthony Smith in, and it's Thursday, which means that it's initial jobless claims time.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Kaylee. So we have 2 significant items that got released since our last touch point on Tuesday. And it's going to be durable goods. So taking a look at manufacturing. And as always, it's Thursday. So we have an update for those initial jobless claims. So starting off with manufacturing and durable good orders, we saw that there was a 1.1% drop for the month of February. This is significant because this is the first drop in 10 months. So there has been some momentum building, as you both know, for manufacturing and durable goods. A lot of good stuff happening. And as you know, when you look at durable goods, that leads into production. From those orders goes into production, and that production gets shipped throughout the country, leading into more flatbed trailer volumes. And so looking at that, that's going to be impactful for this overall flatbed segment. But within it, a lot of people are going to be citing those winter weather events throughout the month of February, especially within the Southwest and the Midwest. But have no doubt that that had some significant impacts for manufacturing, but still no one's talking about prices, and it's weird. And I'll save the skepticism for initial jobs claims, but that's going to be a thing still, and it should be on everyone's radar. Moving into initial jobs claims, we saw that there was a downward movement to 684,000 initial claims for the most recent week. And so this is the lowest level it's been in over a year or since the pandemic started. And so this is a movement in the right direction. But as you know, they don't have the best track record from time to time, whether it's gathering these claims coming through or fraudulent initial claims going through. We've seen some upward revision. So it's a step in the right direction, yes. But I'm going to be watching closely to see if there's an upward revision on next week's numbers for this most recent week, and seeing if it's actually sticking. So that's going to be two things. Are these initial jobs claims going to stay low or below that 700,000, which is crazy to say, threshold, or is it going to be bumping back up over 700,000 like nothing ever happened, and it's just another non-event for initial claims? Because either way, we still have a long way to go.
Absolutely, we got a whole long way to go, right? And
Prices,
he's still
prices.
he's trying not to be skeptical, but I know him. He's very skeptical. But hey, let's take I'm going to run with the good parts of it,
Okay.
right? And look at what's going on. And you've got the stimulus checks coming. You've got the vaccines that are rolling out. And we'll get through some of these other bumps and hurdles that are going on. I mean, it's just it's one anomalous event after another that just keeps hitting us. And whether it's weather, Texas freezes completely, the whole state, which never happens. I've been in severe, very difficult ice storms in the Panhandle there before, where just driving and then driving to a screeching halt and then stuck for like 12 straight hours. Which is nasty, but not the entire state in one shot, shutting down the entire power grid and everything is crazy when that type of stuff happens. But it does at times. And then you've got, a 20,000 TEU, 224,000 ton vessel stuck sideways in the Suez Canal. And plus stimulus checks, plus 27 container ships sitting in San Pedro Bay, and 28% rejection rates, surface transportation in the United States. Absolutely crazy times. You need your information. And you know what else you need, Kaylee?
What else do you need?
You need people who know what they're doing in the logistics industry.
Yes.
And we've got one of those guys on right now. We're going to go a little bit out of order, but we're going to bring in Jason Roberts is who we've got. And I've known Jason for a number of years. Hey, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. Jason has got a title that I mean, you got to have when you hand out a business card, it's like two of them, right? Or does it just cover the entire thing?
Well, right now, I think the only fortunate thing to be in hold up is that I'm not having to hand out a lot of business cards right now. So there's still some work to do. There.
Yeah. So you're saving money on ink and saving those trees. So Jason Roberts, so you were president at Avenger Logistics. Now senior vice president and business unit president with Avenger Logistics and Mode Enterprise Operations, right? So how did this new title happen? What's going on? Mode acquired Avenger? What's happening there?
Yeah, so Mode somewhat recently acquired Avenger. I guess officially back in the fourth quarter, or pretty close to it. From there, you probably also read that there was pretty close to that same time period, a new CEO was brought in to the company with an idea to try to really bring Mode Global into, to be able to play with the big guys. And, they're currently now have a $2 billion freight leveraging ability, and, puts them right up there, in the top 10 in the country. So on our side, it was something we're very excited about. Avengers had great success over the last, 5 years, but I think there was an article written a year or so ago about what you do when you start hitting those hurdles, and most companies do it, at that 50 and that 150 and then the $500 million mark. How do you transition to that? And acquisition was what made the most sense. So we're very excited about that. And I was a few months into the acquisition. I was tapped to continue to oversee Avenger operations, but also Mode's in-house enterprise operations. So, as you probably know, Mode has, they acquired Suntech a couple years ago, so they have a very massive agent network, and I'm overseeing anything that's getting tucked into the employee network, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does.
So, Jason, talk to us a little bit about kind of what a culture change is like when you go through that acquisition and when you go through the bringing in of a brand new CEO, because companies really thrive on having that good, solid culture. And it can almost kind of be difficult, like butting heads if the two companies don't necessarily mesh when the culture comes in. How did you guys kind of navigate bringing together Mode and Avenger into one seamless unit now?
Well, I think there are some understandable apprehension from your employees. That's going to happen, right? Change is tough for everyone, even if it's better for you in the long term. Change is change. And I think that we were very thoughtful on the front end of, although we were being acquired, we still wanted to make sure that that was going to be a partnership that lend itself well to what each other's skill set was. So I think the first thing that made why it was easier, or as easy as it can be, was the fact that our business models complement each other so well. Mode and Suntech have been a big player on the intermodal side for quite some time. And on the truckload side, what they do really well is service their customers with contracted and dedicated freight. They don't really play in the high, wide, and heavy space, flatbed and open deck, which Avenger does. But what I think a lot of people don't also realize is Avenger, half our business is still truckload. And a majority of that is complementary to what they do, because it is a lot of transactional freight, spot quote, ad hoc, next day, same day freight. What we've tried to target on that side of things is customers that have greater challenges than just the capacity crunch that we see. So it's not just the point A to point B that we're dealing with. We're trying to solve problems for the customers that have multi-picks, multi-drops, trailer pools that they need at the shipper or the receiver. Those were things that we were able to provide to them. So on our side, we're gaining a ton of technology. We will be integrating into their proprietary BTMS. And we're very excited about that. So we've been doing, production environments of that for the last couple of months. They've got a lot of firepower behind that, with some really bright individuals and a big team of data scientists that are working around that to help it cater towards what we do, which will also benefit the Greater Mode brand. But I think on our side, the other thing they did really well, and I think what was important to them, was for us to be able to maintain and keep the culture that we had in place, which was why I think Lance had made the decision to keep the Avenger brand what it was. Has been, as far as an acquisition goes, as good as we could have ever hoped for, truly.
Jason, it's really awesome to see another Chattanooga-born company, gain that national spotlight and have this with Mode. Mode is, it's a name that people know, and now Avenger, they're going to know Avenger everywhere. You guys are doing tremendous stuff. You've been doing tremendous stuff. I've been following your career there ever since we briefly crossed paths about 4 years ago. This time we did on a brief few week stint there, my friend, which I enjoyed, even though it was very, very brief. The merger and the acquisition, obviously you talked about the cultures and how it was such a great fit. It sounds like you guys are fitting into a niche that that Mode needed, right? That they were looking for. You were kind of being absorbed into what they were already offering. You filled a need that they needed to provide to their customers as well. Did that play into saying, hey, yeah, this is a good merger that we don't want to fight, this acquisition?
Without question, we're already handing batons between each other, depending on what the service that the customer is needing. I think that is going to be and continue to be at the heart of everything that Mode is trying to accomplish, which is service its customers at the highest level possible and service both its agent network and its employees. I think that is something that Avenger also brings to the table. I think that the sharing of the minds is going to be something that is beneficial to everybody. And I also think that on our side, Lance coming in as the new CEO is also coming in with a fresh look and take on what he's wanting to accomplish and bring this large customer, into the, this new era that where technology wins. I think that is very much at the forefront of that. And again, I think at the heart of it is service, whether that's, to our agent network or to the customer. So I would absolutely agree with that.
Excellent
Jason,
stuff, Jason.
That's awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you and you don't want to mail them a postcard-sized business card, where can they go to connect with you? Where should they find you?
Email without a doubt. Always checking that. So you can simply type in jason.roberts@avengerlogistics.com. You can always go to our website, whether that's if it's a customer that's needing a quote, if it's somebody who's potentially interested in a job. We are always looking for good talent here as well. So you should be able to reach me there without any issues.
Awesome, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Jason. We'll catch up again real soon, my friend. Yeah, Kaylee, it's really good information to have. Now, these guys, he's in, like he said, and I loved when he said, it's a high, heavy, and wide space, right? That's that specialized open deck type of thing that they do, and that's about 60% of their business, I think. Talking with him, and they're pretty specialized in that area, but they've got plenty of other things they're doing. I really wanted to highlight the fact that this merger and what they looked at, or this acquisition that they looked at, was the fit of it, right? When you're looking at these things, and there's a lot of mergers, acquisitions that are happening. People looking at these different types of things, and if you're looking into this type of thing, it's really to see how happy and good and quickly and easily, seamlessly these integrations can happen when there's great cultural fit, and it's just not an acquisition to blindly grow, but you're fitting in a specific niche right into their company. It really sounds great. I thought it was awesome.
Right. It was really good to hear from him. And it's always good when companies bring you good announcements. And our next guest, we also have a pretty big announcement. So we're welcoming the founder and CEO of FourKites. And Matt, he's got some pretty big news to share with us. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
How are you guys?
Doing great, Matt. Matt Elenjickal, right? Am I right? Am I saying that right? Elenjickal?
You got it right. Yeah.
See, I nailed it, man. And you probably dumbed it down for me to be able to say it correctly. But so founder and CEO at FourKites, which is amazing. I want to talk to you about some of the insights and what you guys are seeing as you're tracking shipments globally, because you guys are all over. Million plus shipments a day you guys are tracking, I believe, for your customers worldwide. But now you guys just did a funding raise, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we announced a Series D. It's a $100 million raise that we announced yesterday. Yep.
That is awesome. You just announced it yesterday. So how is that going, and what's the raise for? Where's FourKites going? Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, where FourKites is, what you guys are doing. So those who may not know, I don't know how you can be in this space and not understand what FourKites does. They do a lot of great stuff, but just briefly, what you guys are in and where this $100 million is going to take you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a real-time visibility platform. We launched the company in 2014. So it's been almost 6 years since we are in business. Based out of Chicago, my background before that, spent a lot of time in the technology space, working with big shippers, BCOs, dealing with transportation warehouse systems, and that's where I saw the pain point. Right, you don't know where things are. The truck leaves the facility, and you get a lot of phone calls, and you have no idea what is happening in your supply chain, and we wanted to solve it. So we came to market with this real-time visibility concept. We created the category back in 2014. The company has grown exponentially. We are almost approaching 525 people globally. Chicago is the headquarters. Fortune 500 companies, we touch almost 50% of the Fortune 500 in some fashion. Either their customers or our customers are shipping to them. And the platform is global, multimodal, truckload, LTL, rail, ocean, intermodal, courier, parcel. You name it, we can handle everything. And we are also expanded into other areas like yard management, appointment scheduling, and other areas.
So,
awesome.
Matt, tell me a little bit about how 2020 kind of impacted you guys, and then with that Series D funding, kind of how 2020 funneled you into that space, because last year was unprecedented. Honestly, the first 3 months of 2021 have kind of been unprecedented too. We were talking about that earlier. But it kind of led to the question of everybody wanting to know, where is my stuff? When is it going to get here? And how is it going to be impacted by maybe pain points that the pandemic is causing? Talk to me a
Yes,
little bit about those points that you guys identified and were like, we can use this to our advantage through that 2020
yeah,
space.
absolutely, absolutely. So, like I said, this is a new software category, right? Back in 2014 is when we created it. I think last year, really, if there's one thing that all the disruptions highlighted, it is the need for supply chain visibility with all the items that we were seeing in the news cycle every day, whether it is empty shelves, containers getting stuck at the port of loading, port of discharge, and people not knowing just, to answer the very simple question, when can I expect my product, right? So those are all the things that we heard day in and day out last year. In terms of how the COVID and everything impacted us, obviously our Q1 was pretty light, given right a lot of uncertainty in the market. People were really trying to figure out right how long this is going to last and what's the impact. But Q2 onwards, we started seeing the tailwinds, especially some of the industries that have traditionally been very hesitant to adopt this technology. They started coming in, pharma, life science. Yesterday we announced a big partnership with Cardinal Health. They came in the middle of COVID and they wanted to come to FourKites and build a cognitive supply chain by tracking their products end to end, whether it is medicines or PPE, right, everything. So a lot of tailwinds from COVID last year. We saw retailers and their vendors collaborating at a scale that has never happened before. People wanted to share data in terms of where products are at any given time, so they can plan the deliveries better, the labor better at the stores, right? So a lot of collaboration happened. And finally, the demand for visibility just skyrocketed. Everybody, if you're shipping something from point A to point B on a truck or a train or whatever it is, you need to know where products are. And the demand skyrocketed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent stuff. Thank you for that explanation, Mathew, of what 2020 did in 2021. Now, from a different perspective, the same thing though. In your space, you're connecting all these different IoTs, right? The Internet of Thing devices, et cetera, for the different companies and across thousands of different carriers and different modes of transportation.
Right.
Gathering that information and making those connections at first has got to be a bit of a daunting task and a little bit difficult to get done. Is it more acceptable now? Like you said, you saw more and more collaboration between the vendors, the shippers, the carriers, et cetera. Is it really gaining that much speed for this type of space, making it easier to get that connection together? Is there much more collaboration, or is this a fading fad with the collaboration that people are doing this?
No, not really. So making the connection, that is just one piece of it, right? Yes, you have to make connections with the trucking companies, get the data. Trucking companies are definitely more willing to share data these days because they have come to realize that the minute they share data, it is making their operations better, right? Because imagine a truck driver, getting stuck at a location, waiting to be loaded or unloaded. And if that location know exactly when the driver is going to show up, they can be better prepared, right? So there's a lot of efficiencies that trucking companies can gain by sharing data. So it is more accepted these days. Now, in terms of just collecting the data and making the connections, it's just maybe 1/10 of what we do, right? I mean, that is easy. I mean, you can go and build an API, you can collect all the data. But the difficult thing is you have to clean the data, you have to fill the gaps. And most importantly, it is not about just painting the dots on a map, right? I mean, that doesn't do any good. You have to take the data and solve business problems. I think that's where we excel. Given the customer base that we have, the top 500 companies in the world, top 10 CPGs, top 20 food and bev, they have really helped us evolve the platform from just being a data gathering tool to solving business cases, whether it is reducing the detention or dwell time at the locations, better customer experience, right? So it's a lot of things that we can do. It's all about solving use cases. It's all about the value and ROI that we bring to the clients.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Mathew. Kaylee and Mathew, both of you, when you look at different things and you see that, these highly stressful events on societies cause them to move forward at a faster pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
They cause things to happen. It always happens. And we've seen that with COVID and moving forward. You also notice that, there are those that will kind of go, okay, we'll make it through this and it'll be business as usual. It is not business as usual. You've
It's not.
got to know where it's going. And many people have said if your supply chain is the same after COVID as it was before, you're in severe trouble. You've got to have that. You've got to adapt these new things, and you've got to step on board faster and faster with this transparency, et cetera. Look at what just happened in the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing in that area? Do you have specific data in that specific area that is over there? I mean, it a day, a week, 2 weeks to get this the Ever Given out of that area. We hear maybe there's 100 vessels on each side. What are you guys seeing from there, Mathew?
So when you think about a typical transit time for a steamship line, right, from let's say Far East to the US or Europe, it's almost 28 to 30 days. So we have significant volume going through the platform when it comes to steamship or container traffic to give our customers insights as to what is the dwell time at the canal, if you will, right? What is the average waiting time at a port of loading or a port of discharge? How are the disruption impacting the inventory move, right? Because we not only know where the container is, we also know what is inside the container. So that is giving us better information as to impact or provide information to our customers to impact the downstream operations, whether it is getting products from an alternate source, whether it is expediting through air, right? These are all the things that we are seeing in the platform live as we speak. And again, the last 24 hours, it's been crazy. We get a lot of requests in terms of, hey, can you slice and dice this data for us, right? So our customer success team is always busy handling those requests. But it's been a busy 24 hours, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely crazy, I'm sure. The downstream effects from that are going to be pretty long lasting too, as well, don't you think?
Absolutely, right. The freight cost is going to go up if you have to expedite, right, instead of container through an air, right? It's almost 5x, and all the downstream disruptions. And then you talk about the bullwhip effect, right? I mean, if these are coming to a manufacturing facility, it is going to impact the production of finished goods. And by the time the impact is felt at a retail store, it will be another week or 2 weeks. So we are just getting started. We haven't seen the full impact yet. It is still upstream, if you will. The downstream, middle mile, last mile, we haven't started feeling anything yet, and it's coming.
Yeah, and going around the Cape is not much of a solution, is it?
Yeah, I don't think.
I could tell by your answer that I'm correct in that question. Hey, Mathew, so we've convinced people you can't sit back, let this pass too, and move on as usual. You've got to get this visibility. You've got to jump on. You've got to keep moving forward. Your supply chain cannot survive at pre-COVID operation after and what's going on right now. Where do they go to learn more about what you guys doing there at FourKites and get on with the cool kids?
Yeah, FourKites.com, and that's where you can see all the information. And like you said, the supply chains won't be the same after COVID, and that's where we got all these fantastic investors coming to join the FourKites team. It's not just a financial race, right? We have strategic investors, whether it is Zebra, Qualcomm, Volvo, all these guys are coming to FourKites to really build the next phase of supply chain visibility beyond transportation into what is in the warehouse, what is happening at the stores. Can we create, chip to cloud technologies, right, to really expedite that data transfer? So this is what the future is going to look like. And to learn all about it, go to FourKites.com. You can see everything. You can get all the information there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Mathew. Have a great day, my friend.
You too. Take care.
Good stuff from him.
Yeah. All right. So from surface truckload transportation and the heavy, high, and wide market to visibility and the Suez Canal, and now let's go air cargo. What do you say?
Let's take off.
Let's take off. Let's take off with Eric Kulisch. We got Eric in the house, and we'll talk some air cargo. Eric, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. That was an excellent discussion. Looking to follow up on that, including, I'm getting some ideas that maybe there'll be some more air charters because of the Suez Canal blockage. So I'm looking into that today for our readers, maybe have something soon.
Yeah, let us know if they start converting wide bodies into oil tankers.
Well, they do have those fueling planes in the military. So
they do. I don't know. I'm not anyway. But hey, let's get into serious in the air cargo. Let's talk about. We were talking about the weaponizing of vaccines before, because we're seeing this not only in air cargo, but we're seeing it also in maritime as well, with the crews that are trying to get off and get vaccinated, and now they're not allowed to get into China without the Chinese vaccine, et cetera. What's going on with the COVID rules and the pilots' impact there in Hong Kong with FedEx and UPS? They've been fighting for a little bit there, trying to figure things out, right?
Yeah, I mean, ever since COVID started, the whole travel restrictions have caused operational problems or challenges for not only the ocean but the air carriers. And different countries have different rules, and you got to get different permissions and slow down for testing. And so, you know, things have kind of come to a head in Hong Kong, which is some of the strictest requirements. And kudos to them. They only have had about 200 deaths and 11,000 cases in a city that's, probably about the size of New York. So they've really kept control of it. But, it's impacted FedEx and UPS in a couple of ways. Hong Kong is requiring, in the last couple months, quarantines on pilots or air crews that domicile or live in Hong Kong. So some of the Hong Kong-based carriers like Cathay Pacific and others are impacted by that, because they have to go for 2 weeks, stay in a hotel or stay at home, and they can't fly. So, and FedEx has about 180 people, crews that live in Hong Kong. They call that, they live there, they like it. And so they base out of there for the intra-Asia routes. And so the FedEx doesn't, relocated a bunch of families that wanted to move to San Francisco at great cost. And they've complained to the U.S. government, and the U.S. Department of Transportation stepped in and said, told Hong Kong, look, we're gonna start looking at your flight schedules for all your carriers coming to the U.S. and look if there's any public interest or law violations, just putting pressure on them. Because what Hong Kong did was they carved out an exemption for flights coming from Anchorage, which is a major transshipment point. So Cathay Pacific has a big operation that flies cargo planes from Anchorage to Hong Kong. And so their pilots are able to fly that trunk route without much restriction, whereas FedEx doesn't fly out of Anchorage. They're, like I said, Hong Kong's a hub for intra-Asia. And so they're being impacted, but Hong Kong's, the Cathay Pacific isn't. So the DOT is trying to light a little fire under Hong Kong to try and even the playing field. And then the other impact for other airlines, including UPS, is that, some of the conditions there for quarantining aren't very good. So if you test positive, or they think you've been in contact with someone with COVID, they'll put you in a mass quarantine center, so you're not by yourself. You might pick up the disease. It's not very comfortable accommodations, and so pilots aren't very happy with that. And lately, they've been holding pilots at the airport while they wait for their COVID tests. When you come in, you got to take a COVID test and test negative. Used to be able to go to the hotel, get some rest and wait for your results. Now they're holding you for several hours at the airport. And that's just difficult for the pilots. They come in at night, they want to go to sleep. So it's just kind of a lot of operational issues.
They've got laws for reset and rest as well, too. So so what we're the thinking here is that this might be some type of weaponizing of the vaccine, or the testing, actually, to delay specific flights on competitive air cargo, right?
I mean, I don't think it's that much of a trying to gain a competitive advantage or stick it to anybody, but
yeah.
But when you do have those quarantine rules that benefit Anchorage, it does benefit Cathay Pacific. But the bottom line is, I don't know how much of UPS claims there's just not really any operational impact on them with this, because with these testing delays or holding the pilots for a few hours. But the pilots aren't happy, because it can impact their on-duty time, and it also is just an inconvenience and not very comfortable for them. It's not a great work environment.
So I've got a question for you, Eric. So
Yeah.
Lori on the Rocco was on Tuesday talking to us about how it's some of the seafarers are really at an like unfair advantage. They're really really disadvantaged because places in China, ports in China, were requiring those seafarers to have the Chinese vaccine specifically to offload cargo or to dock at the Chinese ports. Have you seen any indication of any airlines or any cities requiring pilots to have a specific vaccine? Because I imagine that would be kind of difficult, right? Pilots are a lot more mobile, they move a lot faster than those seafarers do, and they're
Yeah.
going to more places. So it would be a truly unfair disadvantage to require them to have one
Yeah.
specific vaccine.
I've not seen that. That would be pretty amazing. I mean, I don't know how you
Mm,
there's it's like you're being told get any vaccine you can now to limit it like that. That would be very
yeah.
that'd be bizarre and difficult. But
Yeah.
I've not
So
heard
my take,
anything.
so my takeaway from this is really, and maybe Kaylee, I think maybe you have a different one. I don't know, but my takeaway from this is that the weaponizing of these things, as it seems for the vaccines, et cetera, in the maritime, is where people are thinking that's happening a little bit.
Mhm.
Here, it's not really that case because even FedEx, you're saying, is not saying that there's that significant of an operational change. It's really not to diminish it at all. If you go much past, it's a really bad inconvenience for some of the pilots, et cetera. It doesn't get into that
Well,
realm
I
where there's any nefarious trade type of issues
Yeah,
going on here.
well, I think the impact for FedEx is more because than with UPS, because they're losing downtime with their pilots. It's costing them a lot of money to relocate their pilots or families
Mm,
to San Francisco, and so they're not operating that as an intra-Asia hub, and they have this 2-week quarantine requirement in Hong Kong if you live there. So they had to move all their pilots. Now they got longer distances to get them back up to take on the flights or move them around to relocate them. So for FedEx, it is a cost and an operational impact to some degree. UPS apparently less so.
gotcha. Gotcha. So, in other news that's going on around in air cargo, we got some Amazon air developments going on there as well, and some other things that are happening there. Pick one, man. I mean, there's a ton of great. What's on top of your list there, man? You're the one who digs these things up. There's a ton here that I could ask you.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's always constantly on the move. I mean, they're never resting. So whether it's ground, parcel, trucking, but in the airspace with Amazon Air, they last week or in the last week or so, they've opened up a more airport gateways. So they're constantly expanding their private network, adding aircraft and airport locations. So now they're flying into Fairbanks, Alaska once a day and Toledo, Ohio. I saw some reporting that they're going to building a facility or working with someone to get access to Sacramento Airport in California. So they're building these small, point-to-point nodes, and then they've got some regional hubs too. Their U.S. National hub is going to be opening in September in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky airport. So that's a big investment. They also have invested in the last couple of weeks about $131 million in Air Transport Services Group, which has a couple airlines that fly on a contract basis for Amazon. They fly these 767 freighters. And so Amazon took advantage of some warrants in a contract or a leasing contract with them. So that'll give them about 19% of the company when those kick in or get approved in May. And Air Transport Services Group is about 11 freighters that they're going to lease out this year, 11 more to Amazon.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Can we really quick hit this protectionism that you were talking about here? I read a little bit about this before. I didn't get through the entire article though, but we've got some U.S. carriers trying to gang up on some Mexicans. I guess is that what's going on here? What's going on with this protectionism article?
Yeah, it's a small niche story. Not these aren't big carriers, but I always find it interesting when companies, big or small, want to claim they want to compete, but they always like to use the regulators to try and bang on the opposition or level the playing field for them rather than in the market. In this case, a small Mexican cargo carrier applied to the DOT for access to fly in and out of the U.S., which is perfectly allowed. And they said they would stop at intermediate points like the Caribbean to pick up stuff on the way. But Kalitta Air Charters, which is affiliated with the big air charter company or cargo company called Kalitta Air, but it's a different company, and a couple small other small cargo companies petitioned or are objecting to that. I think they misread the petition and think that the Mexican company also wants to fly from point to point from like Detroit to Wichita in the U.S. and make a couple of flights before they head to Mexico, which isn't allowed under cabotage laws. And so I think they misread that and are opposing it. But they still would seem like in their petition they wanted the thing to be blocked because they want more business for the American carriers either way.
Gotcha. Hey, Eric, thank you so much for everything, my friend. It's always good to catch up with you in the air cargo market. And let us know if you got some breaking news on what's going on in that Suez Canal. And we'll be watching FreightWaves.com and reading your stuff because it's very, very insightful. You can catch Eric Kulisch, our air cargo editor, on FreightWaves.com. How do they reach out to you if they've got some sightings of oil tankers in the sky or anything like that from fallout from the U.S.?
Yeah, just, catch one of our stories at FreightWaves.com or AmericanShipper.com. My email address is in the bottom of in the masthead or my bio.
Yeah, excellent stuff.
There we
Thank you,
go.
Eric. We'll talk again soon and get another update,
Thanks,
my friend.
Eric.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Wow,
All
I'm
right,
starting to hear
Vincent.
I'm starting to hear some thunder out there, Kaylee.
I know. So I don't know if we're gonna have time to jump to Nick Austin again, but just in the case that we don't, I do just want to update everybody. We are under a tornado watch now for pretty much all of Alabama, all of Mississippi, and a little bit of Middle Tennessee right along that I-65 corridor. So things are getting started out there. We've got some clearing going on, and it could get a little hairy here this afternoon. So like Nick was telling you, if you're in your truck, make sure that you've got your wireless emergency alerts turned on. If you're stationary or if you're at your house, pull out your weather radio, look up your local social media, your local news stations, because they will have the best information on what's going on in real time if you're anywhere in the Southeast today. And then tomorrow, that severe threat will shift once again to that eastern Georgia, kind of southeastern seaboard threat for that threat area too.
Right on. What you need to do is you need to put that on on your phone, and then you need to go to your computer or your TV if you got an Android TV like I have one, and go to FreightWaves.com or download your favorite podcasters, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and check out all the great content. Yesterday, we just blew it out of the water with the 3PL Summit, did we not?
Oh,
Kaylee?
yesterday was great.
we
It was
just-
awesome.
Tons and tons of great stuff. Dune and I went on an 8-interview marathon with Prasad Galapali from Trucker Tools and Brian Tretzold from Ambition and Riley Ford from Front headline sponsor yesterday, and also Ann Ranke, who is the CEO and president of TIA, gave keynote speech yesterday, which was tremendous. And you know what's really awesome? See, we're just starting the season.
It's
You know what I'm saying?
it's about to heat up. We've got events the next like 2 or 3 consecutive weeks, at least 2 in April.
Yeah, we've got the Enterprise Fleet Summit Wednesday, April 7th. We've got the Net Zero Carbon Summit April 22nd. Drone Waves April 30th. FreightWaves Live at Home the 19th and 20th of May. Owner Operator Summit in June. Cybersecurity in June. And you know what? The granddaddy of all, the Coachella of freight events is F3 in Chattanooga, right?
My calendar is
Future of
full
Freight.
already.
Future of Freight Festival, November 8th through the 10th. Get online and get your tickets, man, because price is gonna go up, and it is going crazy with people trying to get in there right now. They're going nuts.
And you know
So,
what? It's that Future of Freight F3. It's a great opportunity for people to come visit the heart of Freight Alley. Come see Chattanooga. If you've never been to Chattanooga, Tennessee, if you've never driven the Ridge Cut, never had to go through the split of I-75 and I-24, you're gonna drive that and you're gonna be like, this is where all my freight gets stuck all the time, and now I get it.
yeah, if you're coming out of anywhere basically north of Alabama, anywhere else in the country other than like Alabama and Mississippi, you're going through that intersection to get to Atlanta in the Southeast, and you look
And
at it
you're
and go,
sitting.
really? Can we at least get 4? Can we please get 4 lanes?
And and they really said we're going to redo this and we're just not going to add any more lanes. So I don't make the decisions. I just host Midday Market Update.
Absolutely. So hey, check it out wherever you download your favorite podcasts, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thank
Bye,
you so
everybody.
much,
Stay
Kaylee, for
safe.
joining me today.